some attitudes are so toxic and so destructive that it ends up just harming everyone involved, and that's not good for anyone. This week we'll be talking about empathy. That's right, you heard it. And it's very much related dun sa na discuss na natin na dismissive encouragement, because most of the time people don't really seem to see things from the point of view of another. Yung exact situation ng tao, yung exact circumstances ng tao. That's well and good. So tonight we'll be discussing yung good and bad points of having a little too much or too little empathy. Personal experience, I definitely lean on yung I used to lean on yung side na very little empathy. And I didn't used to be this way, or rather I used to have way more empathy than what is good for me. May sinasabi nga sila na if you constantly try to see the good in people, it's going to cost you later. Kasi aabot yan sa point na if you keep trying to see the good or yung reasons behind someone doing something, kahit sobrang sama ng bagay na yun, you're going to suffer for it somehow. Kasi at some point, yung mga ibang tao, ginagawa lang nila yung mga gusto nila for their personal benefit. And then, wala, you try to justify it. You try to justify it to yourself na, siguro ito yung dahilan kung bakit niya ginawa to. Siguro ito yung dahilan kung bakit niya ginawa yan or sinabi yan. But the fact is, sometimes people do things for their own benefit, even if kaibigan mo pa. It hurts even more kung kaibigan mo pa yun. And then they don't really just justify it anymore. Sometimes actions speak louder than words. And very often, people prove what they're like. They show you what they're like instead of telling you what they're like. Mamaya, later on, baka matatry nila justify. But it's what you did, bro. It wasn't yung reasons behind it. So, ayun, as I've said, currently speaking, and maybe some time back, I was definitely yung type na little lower on empathy. I used to be the type na sobrang tinatry feel out or trying to look at things from the perspective of the other person or yung exact situation nila as to why they did something. But sometimes people do things. People do things for their benefit. People do things without really thinking about it na naman. So, I don't know kung sa inyo, medyo may kung saan kayo dyan sa spectrum na yun. Like, are you like low empathy na medyo no, the person did that shit because they're shit, parang ganun? Or are you kind of like high in empathy na you kind of try to see things from the point of view of that person or from yung situation ng tao na yun? Right now, as I've mentioned na din, I'm kind of leaning more towards yung lower empathy, probably because I've kind of learned for myself that unrestrained empathy can be very dangerous, especially to the empath or the person na mataas yung empathy. Na-mention ko na kanina, and bear with me for repeating it, pero constantly trying to see the good in people is going to cost you later. Because, as I can describe it in Skyrim terms, kung empathy 100 ka, there's a very high chance na you can justify just about anything, and then you just end up having you just end up being able to justify almost anything the other person does. And so in effect, kung masyadong mataas yung empathy, there's the possibility of you becoming an enabler instead. Now, some people may ask, what is an enabler? Some of our friends have very, very bad tendencies, addictions, or behaviors na sa totoo lang, it's not good for them. Sure, they may be enjoying themselves now, pero may mga ilang behaviors or habits na very destructive sa kanila. So, say that you're a very, very empathetic person, you may justify almost anything as them needing a break. them needing some kind of rest, them needing some kind of comfort, maybe in the form of a substance, so on and so forth. But is that really good for them? Is that really good for you? Diba? So, sabi nga ng kuya natin si Thanos, things should be perfectly balanced as all things should be. Parang ganun daw. It's kind of a heavy topic for my personally speaking, kasi nga I have a lot of friends who constantly try to see the good in people, and it just ends up costing them heavily in time, effort, energy, money sometimes. And minsan nga gusto nga talaga natin tulungan eh. Minsan isipin natin, I've been there before and I don't want the person to feel the way I did na walang nagtulong sa akin. The thing is, there are some people nga they have to go through the struggle, they have to go through the difficulties to get to the point where they will be able to help themselves, or they will be able to remove yung harmful behavior na yun. I don't know, it's a very sad thing na yun nga, may mga friends ako na ganyan, very empathetic or ganun, tapos ended up just running themselves ragged, stretched thin, so to speak, na they keep trying to help those around them and they end up not being able to help themselves. At the core of it, most everyone should be trying things themselves, solve their own problems somehow, blindsided by too much positivity. Yeah, I could say that, or you could say that nga. Yun yung sabi ko nga eh, na yun nga, my friends have suffered for it, and for the people na nakaka-receive ng ganyang positivity or nakaka-receive ng ganyang tulong na emotional support, sometimes they just take it for granted, which is a sad thing, especially kung friends mo pa talaga yun. Sometimes it's not even your friends. Sometimes it's yung friends mo na nagaganyan ng romantic partners nila. Parang they're trying to understand, for example, from the point of view of yung partner nila, na shitty partner, na oh, this person had a rough past, na-cheat siya dati, so nagkaroon siya ng very, very heavy trust issues. So it's kind of me trying to help them heal, parang ganun. This is what we usually hear, na parang ikaw yung nagiging trauma center. Ikaw yung nagiging parang healer nung traumas nung tao na to. But as I've said, you're supposed to do it yourself. You're supposed to resolve these issues yourself. You can have people supporting you, but again, you have to make it your responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility for you to heal from those past issues, even though it'd be nice to get their support. Ayun. Wow, that sounds really complicated. And overall, nasabi ko lang is yung parang dealings ko naman with others when it comes to yung empathy. And yung mga ibang friends ko na, I would say, medyo nasosobrahan sa empathy. Isn't this the time where the friends around the person start to distance themselves and just say he or she will come around after they snap out of it? I think, very good. Thank you for yung comment na yan. Very good point, observation, or suggestion na magawa. But this is where it kind of gets complicated, I think, because most people would try to say things like, oh, well, maybe this is the time now we need to extend a little more support, we need to extend a little more patience because the person is having a hard time. And then usually what happens here is for cases where itong person na to na naggumago ng bad behavior, kung hindi sila aware about what they're doing is harming the others around them, sila pa yung gagawa ng mga ng gulo, sila pa yung magsasalita against it na parang, aren't you guys my friends? Aren't you guys supposed to support me in my time of need? Aren't you guys supposed to this and that, blah, 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 ganun. This is the reason why nasabi ko medyo connected to sa dismissive encouragement. Because I'm sorry to say, but most of the people who do dismissive encouragement, sila yung nag-expect na kung sila yung may problema, oh, you guys have to watch out for me. You guys have to take care of me. Pero kung sila naman yung pinuntahan, sila yung pupuntahan na mag-vent naman yung mga tao, sila pa mismo yung parang nag-dismissive encouragement. Kaya mo na yan. Pag-pray mo na yan. Think positive na lang. They're the people who are the least na magbibigay ng support sa mga iba, sa mga ibang tao around them. And for me, that's like really sad. Kasi nga, the people who are empaths try to help the person and then the person can't help themselves. So they end up being like an energy vampire. It's really annoying. So, yung suggest mo nga na most people can distance themselves na lang around the people around this person distance themselves na lang, for me is highly effective. I've done it before. Yung pinaka nagawa ko na lang is, nasabi ko na lang is, dude, pre, sis, bro, the shit you're doing is not cool. And if anything, sinusulat ko pa yan in isang medyo long paragraph na lang, because sometimes, if you say it verbally, orally, their brain will just filter out yung mga ayaw nila pakinggan or ayaw nila marinig or ma-accept. Tapos, absorb lang nila yung parang, yung kaya nilang i-defend. And then they'd be like, hindi, pero kasi, kung natamaan kayo dito, then it's time to snap out of it. It's time to kind of change your act, because people around you are going to start distancing themselves from you. Empathy without restraint is very dangerous. Kasi nga, you end up just doing everything for the person. You don't really help the person. And sometimes, you do need to give people a wake-up call. Kahit friends mo pa yan, ikaw pa mismo dapat yung magsasabi ng katotohanan sa kanila. Because sometimes, yun nga, they're likely not going to listen to you. Trust me, ang daming ganyan. So, they're not gonna listen to you, and they're going to give all the justifications in the world. What matters is nakasulat ka ng some sort of message that they can come back to later on, and then maybe given some negative event that happens in their life, they would then have to examine themselves deeply, and maybe change can come from within. But until then, may mga tao na talagang kahit anong gawin mo, kahit anong sabihin mo, kahit anong sampal mo, hindi sila makikinig eh. They're all gonna think ng, oh, you're just a hater. Haters gonna hate. You have to take constructive criticism minsan eh. Minsan, mararamdaman mo lang, oh, negativity yan. Ayoko pakinggan yung negativity. But you do have to take the good with the bad, and you do need to take some of yung constructive criticism. Because if you refuse to, then you end up with the people na naglagi nagsasabi sa social media, i-unfriend na niyo yung mga to. Accept me for who I am. If you didn't accept me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best. You're never going to be at your best kung laging ganyan yung attitude mo. I swear to God. Wait lang. Let's read some comments. The wonders that people do when they think they are right. Yeah. Yan, friend na niyo yung mga to. But I would say, yung pinaka naging suggestion ko sa mga ganyang tao, para sa mga friends natin, na soon to be not very friend na, is you can at least try to reach out to them, speak to them, try to have them see things your way. Not exactly your way, pero explain mo lang na parang, dude, these things that you're doing, these things that you have said to us, they're not cool. Please lang, think about it, and we're still here if you're willing to change. Pero kung hindi, we have no guarantees as to whether or not pwede tayong maging tuloy-tuloy na friends. It's with relationships lang, or any relationship, romantic or platonic. Some traits, some attitudes are so toxic and so destructive that it ends up just harming everyone involved, and that's not good for anyone. You can try. I would advocate still at least trying, sending a message na mahaba, explaining clearly naman lahat. You can try to talk to them in person, pero usually nagkakaroon ng active filters kasi talaga. Leave a message, like parang cheesy na parang may letter kang binigay na i-organize mo. Ito yung mga points na we don't like about you. Please try to change. Kasi kung hindi, we can't guarantee our friendship. And ayun, kung ayaw pa rin makinig, we're sorry. Let's just part ways for now. Agree, disagree. Kasi at some point magkasusuntukan na lang tayo. Okay. Unrestrained pati. Parang, it kind of sounds like something Megamind would say. Ah, God, I love Megamind, yung movie na yun. I swear to God. What to do after you try to talk to these kinds of people, though? Well, I guess I've briefly touched on that. There's not much you can do, sadly, because at the end of it, the will to change comes from within us. You really can't do much about someone who is probably like medyo may something, may problema siya sa loob, or may sickness siya, unless they come to people with isang attitude na they want to learn from you, they want to listen to you, they want to do something about themselves, they know they're sick. They're not going to change. And what's sad is a lot of yung mga friends ko, and probably maybe some of you listening out there right now, we always feel like we can help the person. We can change them. Maybe some of yung mas female, yung mas nasa female spectrum of yung viewers natin is nakaka-relate nga, because we feel like if we give someone a chance, if we give them the chance to really have that opportunity to change themselves, they will. And in most cases, that's the best thing naman. It's very Rogerian na naman, humanistic psychology. Pero believing in someone to change and them actually changing can be very different things. If ever any of you are probably thinking of going into dating or finding a romantic partner anytime soon in the future, especially if you're more or less na adult ka talaga, like 18 and above na sa totoo lang, it's nearly impossible to change someone once they've kind of settled into yung identity nila. They have some core traits na sa totoo lang very solid na, and it's best to take the person as they are the moment you meet them. You shouldn't be expecting na the person will change when they get into the relationship with you, because by then, would you really be satisfied? Would you really want someone na napipilitan lang na magbago? It should be someone na nag-change sila for their own sake, for their own self-improvement. Maybe it's my personal opinions about it. Maybe some of you have different opinions about it. You can put those in the comments, syempre. But as I've said early on, sa simula pa lang ito, most of these topics are usually things na I've thought about for some time na, maybe have some personal experience, and usually topics na naiinis nga ako. Kasi nga, ang dami kong friends na they have to suffer because people take them for granted. And maybe at some point in time, even I myself have let myself be like that na din. Because I believe in the good of people. But I guess some people nga, given their exact situation at this time or that time, that's the way they are. Kailangan nilang maging, I don't know, self-aware. And it's really not up to us na maging, I don't know, to be that figure that would like wake them up. Kahit sobrang tempting na bigyan mo lang ng backhand, di ba? I think for those who have probably watched BoJack Horseman, may mga, yun nga, si Princess Carolyn, parang so very, very busy trying to help others that you don't really help yourself all that much anymore. Sad. But anyway, I guess to wrap things up, pinaka-conclusion ko dito about the topic on empathy is empathy without restraint is very dangerous, especially to the empath or the person na mataas sa empathy. And if you keep going down that line, then you're not really going to help a lot of people. Rather, you may help some people in a way, but only for the short term. You'd be able to support them well enough, yes. Pero kung tumagal nga, that ends up stretching yourself thin, yung energy and time mo and effort mo. And it's not good for you as the empath, and neither is it good for the people you help in the short term. Kasi people really, at the core of themselves, should be able to help themselves or solve their own problems. If you keep trying to help them as an empath, then it's likely na kung empathy 100 ka, edi you're going to end up becoming an enabler. Kasi tinatolerate mo, kasi you feel that, oh, these behaviors are because they had a rough past. You can justify almost anything. Empathy without restraint is dangerous. So balance in all things, and that would be the best for everyone. Thank you, of course, as always, for joining in and leaving comments. Really appreciate them. Kasi it's nice. It feels nice na at least may siguro mga 3 viewers ka na. I was too empathetic before, then boom, things ended up exploding in my face, like emotionally. So yeah, totoong-totoo what you said. Yep, appear dyan, hold up your hand. Kasi I was that way din dati. In case maybe you weren't here, simula pa lang ng show or sa KENTalk, it was definitely something I dealt with before, to the point that I started to have to reserve some for me. A fixed own oxygen mask before helping others. Parang ganun. It's not gonna do you any good if you put yourself in harm's way in order to help someone else. It's best na lang na you're in a position na if you do help someone, it's because sobrang 1% lang ng help na kaya mong bigyan. Parang ganun. Like, ganun. You can give them like very little. This depends, of course, on the relationship you have with the person and if they're actually worth giving yung time, effort, and energy mo. But case-to-case basis. Best to just make sure na lang na if you do give help, it's not something that ends up taxing you so much that it harms you. I know, contrary to all of yung mga movies and books na self-sacrifice is a virtue. I know. But unpopular opinion, if people want to disagree with me, go right ahead sa mga live posts ko. So, very true, help yourself first before you can help others. How do you empathize yung just enough lang? Kasi usually, if you don't empathize much, insensitive ka. If too much naman, enabler ka. Kind of a case-to-case basis. I'm sorry. I remember having some psychology professor before where he kept saying things like, it's likely, it's probably that way. Because there's no clear-cut answer for most things. Laging may gray area. Like the longer you live, parang laging kakaroon ng gray area. But let's just say na you can empathize, you can assist someone, you can support someone until only a certain extent. Yun nga lang, of course, itatanong niyo sa akin, like, ano yung certain extent na yan? When you've given yung help mo, yung advice mo, yung suggestion mo as to for the person to maybe stop doing yung harmful behavior or asking them to change, if they really refuse to change, or rather they try to change a bit but they end up not doing it effectively enough, then you may have to consider just stopping. I know it's going to be very difficult for most of us kasi syempre sasabihin ng mga tao na parang ano ba yan, iniwan mo lang. But you can probably just distance yourself somehow. Of course, this is difficult kung romantic partner mo na. Pero, all I can say is you will reach the point where you feel that you have really, really given a lot of yourself in trying to help the person out. Going along with yung comment dito, parang, self-sacrifice is a virtue. Yeah, it's a virtue. Parang, it's a nice thought. It's a nice sentiment. But it's very Disney. I'm sorry. It's very Disney. Yung self-sacrifice is a virtue. And we've seen so many movies na parang, oh no, sacrifice yourself. Yeah, you end up dead. But for what? For what benefit? Sorry to say, diba? It's more like try to help people, but not at the cost of sacrificing too much of yourself. Does this make sense? But yeah. Anyway, so this has been KENTalk. I really appreciate for those who have come back dito sa KENTalk, and thank you. Thank you very much. It means a lot. So I'll see you around. Have a nice evening. KENTalk out. Woo!